Hello and welcome to all of you. It is time for your dose of the drug that is made from a concentration of the deaths of hundreds of millions of digital citizens in the war-torn hell that is the Battle Royale. My name is Glorious Beachhead and I will be your guide through the exciting bloodshed of part 37. As we can see on the lovingly crafted map of Laxarax Ariscol, Arctic powers are ascending here. Siberia has chomped down on a couple more USSR cities. Yakutia grabs the rare and delicious Japan clay, and the Inuits take 3 Canadian ones, while Sweden has mostly assimilated Norway. Winter is not coming anymore, it's already minus 40 degrees Celsius, and snow is piling up as high as Russian corpses on the steppes. Hellish blizzards roar down from the polar north and batter plains over Hudson Bay. Viking gods are looking at the destruction of Norway and prepare for Ragnarok. Iceland can soon send their trade caravans over ice to Greenland with some really unhappy camels. In Finland, Kekkonen looks at the thermometer and postpones the military exercises until it's really cold. This map by Albinos Ride Dinos shows which civs are on the proverbial struggle street, or in Indonesia's case, struggle straits. The Boers are still holding the #1 spot, despite huge severe gains in the north, but the grace of power rankers is notoriously fickle, and if they continue doing nothing, it might be that they will get their moment in the spotlight soon. We shall see how things change after this part. You can find the rest of the power rankings by our team of experts on r/Civ Battle Royale. Here we can observe the remains of the USSR. That they are still alive is a testimony to the ferocious Soviet defense. In an epic struggle against the Sibir, they lost a whopping 14 cities. This immensely brutal war lasted 73 turns, and one can only guess how many units went down in the crucible of war. The Siberian Air Force is looking strong here, 12 planes altogether. The Man-Sibir Horde seems to be returning east, not that they lack manpower. According to the Info-Addict charge, Sibir have doubled their military manpower in the last 23 turns. This is crazy, especially when you consider how they obliterated the Timurids in the meantime and fought a really brutal Nor-Quarter war with Stalin. The Sibir Khanate is looking downright monstrous. The thin white line that is Portugal regains Flip's bond from the pirate horde. On the other side of Portugal, it is finally looking possible that Rome will once again be Spartan. Leonidas now has a cannon and musketmen next to the city, and it's in the red. Truly, Maria the Mad can now surpass even Nero in her madness, and fiddle as both of her capitals burn. If Portugal and the Bucks don't make peace soon, I don't see Maria holding Lisbon. The Buccaneers don't have much in the way of a land force here, but they have more than enough corsairs to keep capturing the city, and Maria does not have much in the way of troops either. The Portuguese can only hope that the Buccaneers lose interest. After this much flipping, Lisbon booty is probably quite tested and boring after all. For the undoubted excitement of all Indonesia fans in the sub, Gajah Mada is finally doing glorious things in the spotlight of the world. That's a pro, but the con is that the glorious thing looks like a ferocious last stand against the Kimberley. I count 23 Kimberlian airplanes in this slide, and their carpet bombing has already taken Surabaya to the red and Batam to the yellow. A thin turquoise line of privateers and caravels is bravely trying to hold Jandamarra back, but it'll be a miracle if they don't lose their closest cities. Maybe they can outmaneuver in the narrow straits of their islands, where the enemy's numbers don't count that much. Personally, I fear that Nutmeg is going to crack, and it's going to crack hard. The biggest winner of the Indonesia-Kimberley War is Burma anyway, which immediately makes peace with Gajah Mada. Burma is the unhailed total hero of Southeast Asia, really. They've been at war with many, if not all of their neighbors, often several at the time. They are undoubtedly the least powerful nation in their corner, still they cling to life with canny defending using their geographical advantages and island citadels. Anarata is clearly not going to go gentle into that good night. Godspeed, you magnificent stubborn bastard. The Burmese are also really happy to assist the other turtle powers in the area. Here we can observe them taking a page from the Hawaiian playbook and deploying a sizable peacekeeping force to protect Songtsen Gampo and his monks in Lhasa. Conquering Lhasa seems to get harder and harder every turn. The Swedish army is making a concentrated push on Sparta, predictably with Finnish IRL Hakapolitas in the vanguard of the invasion, doing all the hard work for their Swedish paymasters. There's an old German saying about Hakapolitas: "Let's rape it first," said Finn when slaughtering a pig. I'm not sure that's I've never heard. Anyway, Lodz is going to fall, no question. Looks like Leonidas is planning to hold the line at the Cumae Corinth Citadel spam chain. Holding the line against superior foes is of course a Spartan specialty, but the Persians did not have an air force. Sweden does. It helps that Leonidas has finally gotten rifles for his hoplites. Arabia may have started the war, but it's Israel that's on the offensive. Judging by the empty pillaged citadels, Jewish suicide commandos have crushed the Arabian defense lines. Bethlehem or death goes the war cry. I think it's pretty fitting that it's David who is fighting riflemen with crossbows. Very Old Testament-y. On the northern operational theatre, Hebron is in the yellow, encircled with cannon batteries. With numerous melee units in range, God's chosen people need a miracle. If the game glitches because TPang is trying to put the Future Time mod in, it will be divine intervention. Not a narrator, I'm a prophet. Seems like the Inuit found the closet that leads to Sarnia and welded the door shut with frigates. Also, Ohanupa falls to their might. It is brutal and tight fighting in the narrow straits here, with ship decks painted red with slick and freezing gore as three navies tear into each other at the Arctic wastes. Inuit air forces are targeting the maple syrup factories to demolish Canadian morale, and there are rumours that Pearson is secretly developing a modern igloo buster bomb. The Icelandic navy seems to have taken considerable losses and pulled back a bit, but the Inuit should not underestimate just how many ships Iceland can throw to block the White Walkers. What should be worrisome to the Allied forces is that while Icelandic and Canadian military manpower is diminishing, the Inuit curve is sharply rising, despite their relatively bad production. Unsurprisingly, Lodz falls to Sweden. Spartans are hastily organising their defence in the south, which looks a bit bad considering that their core is quite devoid of reserves, especially compared to the horde of Swedish riflemen marching onward from the northern ex-Reich. On paper, the two sides are actually quite close. Sweden has a third as much military manpower, but they are on the offensive, which is harder than defending. In production, they are almost neck to neck. The big plus for the Swedish is their budding air force, but Spartan positions look very defendable. I predict Lodz will be the only city to flip here. The United States of Albany are crumbling under the spurred cowboy boot of Sam Houston. Texas looked stagnated and technologically backwards for so long, and now they're suddenly great war infantry at the front lines. I'm afraid that this is it for Lincoln. There's just no room for emancipation in this fascist world of eternal warfare. I don't know what could be more symbolic for the Battle Royale that, in this world, the Statue of Liberty will never be built. Best hope for Honest Abe is that there are some Hawaiian units loitering about. Seems like Kamehameha has decided to once again deploy peacekeepers to the American continent. He just has a Mexico-sized problem in getting more of them in position. A parting fuck you from the Sibir Horde. Now Stalin can enjoy his morning vodka at the balcony of the Kremlin, gazing into a Siberian citadel gulag and wondering where it all went so wrong. There are only 5 Indonesian ships in this slide. Forget that defensive naval warfare in the Indonesian Straits. A brave great general is floating in the middle of the Kimberley Naval Task Force, daring them to taste his luxuriously spicy food. Kimberlians clearly like the idea so much that they conquer Batam, diving into their hoard of cloves, nutmeg and peppers. Kimberley will be slowed by the fact that there are simply no free tiles in Indonesia. All are occupied by brave turquoise soldiers. Establishing a glorious beachhead will be hard, as I well know. Sir Malok has explained this slide better than I ever could. We all know Carthage has had their fantastically human-like AI, correct? Well, in the last 2 parts, it hasn't been that way. They have failed to do more than dent the Ayyubid cities. Then they declared war on Morocco with almost no army to fight them. Why is this, you may ask? I know. This all started when Proletariat Cossack, a famed Carthage supporter, left. Obviously, he was the cause of Hannibal's successes. He was the secret leader of Carthage. When he left, the AI took back control and now can't do anything well. It sure would explain why the defending Moroccan forces are rampaging through the northern Sahara. Morocco does not have much in the way of siege, but I think Berber cavalry with their plus 50% combat bonus in desert will prove adequate in assailing Tangier. Is this the return of Ahmad al-Manslaughter? He enhances his bloodthirsty reputation by dowing Armenia. Also, there is a pirate backdoor squad navigating around the Gibraltar, no doubt on their way to haul some keel at Goa. Good news for the USA! They no longer have to fear that cheap Chinese products will push all the American products off the market, because no one can trade with the USA anymore. Now embargoed, Lincoln will make America great again. Though, against the international agreement, Texan forces are still exporting hot lead and cannonballs to America. As we saw with the recent happenings in Oregon Royale, real cowboys don't respect the laws and sure as hell don't appreciate the federal US. Not surprisingly, order will not become a world ideology. We shall see if this voting will be enough to trigger wars against the USSR or Afghanistan from autocratic world powers irritated by their proposition. Inuits have deployed the White Walker army to Sihasapa, courtesy to Blackhearts, who gleefully assist the Inuit with open borders against their hated enemy of Canada. Native bros before Canuck hoes. The major Canadian Air Force base of Victoria is in the yellow, with battleships and at least one privateer closing in on target. Were I Pearson, I would evacuate those planes post-haste. There is no way he's going to hold that miserable frozen hellscape vaguely resembling an icy island city. Arabian counterattack has driven the Israelites back to their holy land, mostly. David has noticed that his sling trick just does not quite work with a crossbow against other ranged weapons, and is wisely upgraded to muskets. Hebron is still hanging in there, not quite heap gone yet. I don't get this joke. The other semi-medieval power in the area, the Ayyubids, are doing a sterling job defending against Carthage. Despite 10 green cannons in the picture, not a single yellow city has taken any damage at all. Truly, Carthage is just not the same without Cossack. Machu seems to be pretty firmly in Argentinian hands. A major slap in the face of Brazil, truly. They spend literally thousands of years trying to take an Incan city, and Eva Perón manages to conquer one in a couple of turns. There's also an Argentinian backdoor squad trying to butcher their way towards Cusco, and only an almost dead musketman stands in their way. Incan defense has truly been stellar for 36 parts, but is this the end? The Chilean navy is also looking for openings on the coastline, but with just a couple of ships, it looks uncertain if they can even take one Incan city, not to mention hold it. Oh boy, here we go again. Stalin hating on the Armenians. It looks like it's just a comfort war for here. Something for Joe to vent his anger. Without navy and land borders, Stalin can just feed his troops to the waves of the Black Sea. Knowing Stalin, it certainly looks like a probable course of action. Just fuck those bourgeois riflemen. Though who knows, Triganocerta is completely undefended. The aboriginal voracious appetite for spices knows no bounds. Surabaya falls under the ravening hordes of Kimberley, who are so done with bland-tasting kangaroo meat. They also need some spices to cover up the fact that crocodile tastes exactly like chicken. In their haste to acquire more spice islands, they have let the 5-ship navy of Indonesia live. And also that great general is still swimming in the sea. If one thing is true about Jandamara, it's that he is a merciful conqueror. That won't stop him from taking Jakarta though, which has now entered the danger zone. The Boers are pretty far away from Swedish IKEAs, so they need to acquire their sofas from nearby. Luckily, the world's biggest sofa maker lives just next door. Indeed, Agent Semiramis has seen Kruger filling up the gasoline tanks of his landships. He is clearly planning to go on a shopping spree. Texas ain't having none of that emancipating the slaves bullshit. Albany falls in flames as Elvis plays on his artillery encampment. Looks like Mao will outlive Lincoln. Who would have believed? There is still Cincinnati left, with Hawaii peacekeepers rushing to cover it from the oncoming storm. Just look at Texas. Look at it go. Houston proves that he has more guts than you can hang from the fences. For so long we have been banking for him to go down in flames in the hands of Mexico or the Bucks, and here he is, showing to y'all what he reckons about your empty opinions. Mao has heard that his good communist buddy Stalin has some problems with Armenia and decides to lend a hand. The immortal god chairman of Maokind has shown that he has absolutely zero problems defending against one of the largest armies in the world with only a couple of half-dead Maos. Just give him some time to rest and he will start the long march back to the top, now that he's about balance handicapped. It's a communist plot against Armenia. The glorious people's graveyard of empires, Afghanistan, decides to help his best and only buddy, Joe Stalin, in his quest to eradicate the Armenian beast. He can maybe even reach Bukhara with his planes. Afghanistan is in an interesting position here. Their choice of ideology will certainly bite them in the ass sooner or later, but they are sort of doing okay at the moment. They are perhaps the only nation in the area that can be expected to be able to fight against Siberia and not lose horribly, thanks to their sizable air force and mountain passes. On the other side, there are some Muggles. It would certainly not be impossible for Mivai Sotak to avada kedavra them to Club Loser. It is certainly the only direction that leads Afghanistan back to the top. The Indonesian Navy has apparently mated and produced offspring. New ships come straight out of nowhere and take back Surabaya. The lack of frigates on the Indonesian side probably means that they have no iron, except in the backbone of that great general, who is poised to take Batam back all by himself. RIP Indonesian Great General turns 385 to 386. You were gone too soon. Cumberlian air forces take Surabaya down to 0, but there is still a lot of stuff floating in front of it, preventing immediate capture. There is even a Champan peacekeeping trireme and a composite bowman. Same can't be said about Medan, which is in the red and has 2 privateers hanging there, preparing for the looting. I'm not certain what has damaged those Moroccan ships, but it's probably Cumberlian ships, because they are the only ones with damage on this screen, or something. Without the war room, I am no good at these so-called irrelevant wars. If those Moroccan ships are heading to Wollongara though, it's not going to end well. The city has 86 defense, which is way too much. The Burn Navy watches patiently, like a wolf. They have a high amount of caravels still, but it's a good screen for those destroyers and aircraft carriers. Hebron falls, God has not delivered. Atheists 1, Jews 0. Now the road to the holy city of Jerusalem lies straight open, and Armenia is clearly not done. It remains to be seen if they can take Jerusalem. They have cannons, true, but Israel's mini carpet of crossbowmen stings a lot. Armenia has riflemen though, so if they can get into melee range, they're done. Pikes high, sons of Abraham. Kiaksa flips between Canada and the Inuit. Meanwhile, a Canadian counter-offensive heads towards Sarnia by land. That is a respectable amount of artillery, perhaps enough to keep Hudson Bay clear of enemy ships. For now, the White Walkers have naval dominance, while Canada rules on land, but that's going to change when those Inuit infantrymen secure the glorious beachhead on the frozen shores. Victoria is now in the red and is sure to falter those Inuit ships, eliminating a fairly large chunk of Canadian planes. It does not look good for Canada, really. In front of Akureyri, 3 Icelandic ships are holding off a single Inuit ironclad. Seems like the White Walkers are concentrating on Canada for now. Meanwhile, in the old world, Rome just won't quite fall to the Spartans. Honestly though, Leonidas has currently much bigger problems in the form of the Swedish menace that is advancing southward. The Spartan defense looks downright chaotic. Seems like 300 men are the most Leonidas can handle to command. He has 5 citadels in the front, and all are unoccupied. Is this a trap? I need to consult my buddy, Admiral Akbar. Hawaii makes peace with Trigger Darkhan, ending a potentially great rap feud before it even really got started. Aloha Navy ruled supreme in these parts of the Pacific, but they might have underestimated just how many Gatling guns the Mexicans can float to block them. There is no doubt that Merida and Waipahu are going full Bilma Morelia right now. It's an epic game of flipper, with hundreds of thousands if not millions of casualties. Surabaya is still barely hanging in there, but Medan has fallen. Indonesian privateers seem to have successfully captured a now sorely anemic frigate from the Kimberley. That's not much of a consolidation, because Jandamara has secured that glorious beachhead next to Surabaya. If he can dig his superior land forces in, there is no rooting them out. The amount of Kimberley ships and troops trickling into the war zone is steadily increasing slide by slide. The pincers to crack the nutmeg are slowly closing. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to please prepare to take your hats off. This looks like the last shot of independent USA. The Hawaiian peacekeeping force is too little too late. Judging by the HP of Albany, some brave and lonely American units have done a suicide charge, desperately flying the American flag. Either that, or Lincoln has ordered artillery fire out of spite. 2 uppity colonies make peace. This war was probably originally started because Australia lost in cricket or something like that. Not a single shot was fired, but there were lots of rude telegrams being sent. The Kimberley core is empty and silent. The same can't be said for Australia, with a terrible, terrible carpet of troops waiting. Australia has been silent for a long time now, only waging a pretty difficult war against Korea. And I know the reason for that. It's because there are 2 prime ministers in this picture alone. Australia is clearly in a constitutional crisis, if not an outright civil war. No wonder their decision making is frozen. Our trio of agents is travelling again, with Agent M clearly getting the best city by far. I think TPangolin is favouring his secret lover. No doubt that's the reason behind those atrociously inaccurate predictions. Morale in the Secret Service must be at an all-time low because of corruption in the agency. The anemic frigate has gone to purchase some snacks from SpongeBob, but Indonesia has new frigates. Maybe they're now trading for it, or I was mistaken about their lack of iron. Speaking of resources, that must be uranium I glimpse under the trading post next to Medan. Nukes are not that far off, and every bit counts. Surabaya falls, Medan flips back and forth, and Samarinda seems to be next. And then theirs is the Indonesian capital city of Jakarta. The only question really here is just where will Jandamara stop, and will the resulting warmongering penalty trigger Australia? Carthage still hasn't managed to field a believable defense of Tangier, which looks sure to fall. Lack of siege is clearly slowing Ahmad al-Manslaughter down, but I guess those crossbowmen are better than nothing. In the Mediterranean, we can see that the Buccaneer backdoor squad has utterly failed. Or has it? Because at least Captain Morgan has Lisbon now firmly in his rum-soaked hands. With pirate Great War infantry landing on the Iberian Peninsula left and right, it looks like Lisbon is gone for good. And in the next wave, there are cannons. I do fear for Porto. Holy shit, what has Ava done? A tidal wave of war declarations washes all over her as half the world decides that she is a nuisance. In the forefront of declarations is Brazil, with Pedro clearly not being able to forgive Argentina for successfully capturing an Wait, Machu is back in Incan hands? How? My god, is that amazing or what? What are they using as arrowheads in those Incan crossbows? Depleted uranium? Truly, Incan warcraft is the best warcraft. Seems like Anne Bonny is not doing so good here. Alone against the wenchful Portuguese navy, she prepares for a last stand. Or she could just move to the Carthaginian waters where the Portuguese can't follow. Well played, Anne. A Chinese and a Mongolian great general are engaged in a steering contest over the border. My money is on the Mongolian guy because his name means eternal iron. Can't lose with a name like that. Mao has amassed an army of 3 crossbows, 2 knights, and a worker. If I was Vietnam or Mongolia, I would be very afraid. General Eternal Iron might stare like a champion, but he's no match for Iron Mao. Canadian field artillery pounds night and day, an endless rain of steel falling on the frozen wastelands. The guns of Hudson Bay never sleep. Too bad the Inuit are now coming from the west, striking into St. John through Blackfoot lands. There's a hastily assembled defense force, but with St. John in the red, it looks bad. A column of Inuit infantrymen are hastily paddling through Hudson Bay, trying to land behind Canadian lines. There is, by the way, no less than 3 sources of uranium visible on the Canadian side of the border. Pearson must not allow his northern dominions to fall, lest the Inuits get their hands on an ample supply of nukes. And just like that, St. John is gone, and the Western Canadian Maple Leaf Army is driven to Regina. Here we can also see Sihasapa, which has been Inuit already for some time, I believe. Kiaksa and Victoria have 0 HP, and if they break, Canada loses 1/3 of their planes and uranium. That infantry against riflemen is just brutally uneven. We can also see that the Inuits have been shipping AA guns to the front lines. That is surely going to hurt. Trigger drops the mic and citadels on Korea, almost encapsulating Pyongyang. There are already 2 more Yakutian special grade generals on their way to steal Korean clay. Sleepwalker troops are massing on the border. I would say that Darkhan's trigger finger is itching. Hannibal has redirected his assault to Cairo, shooting cannonballs into the home city of the party pope. Except that's only happening in his dreams because he doesn't have siege units in range. I doubt that brute force melee tactic is going to work and carry the day here. Carthage looks really spent, and with Morocco threatening its western holdings, peace could be eminently beneficial here. Instead of making peace, he hates on the other green-colored nation in the area. Also green-colored Brazil DOWs the Mughals. Here we can see that Afghanistan controls all of the uranium on the Indian subcontinent. Good for them. It might be that nukes are what they need if Sibir comes a-knockin'. Alright, one last glorious shot of the United States of America. Say one thing about America. Say they fought till the bitter end for their strange ideology, which had no place in this war-torn world. Are your Fs primed and star-spangled banners ready to be lowered to half-mast? Alright, Maori, there is space for only one badass warrior culture in this battle royale. The Maori fleet looks pretty alright technologically, but there are a lot of unupgraded caravels there. Also, no ironclads, so I guess they don't have coal down there. What they do have, though, is a pretty good air force. No match for Australia, but it would be an epic war. The Sri Lankans don't like Leonidas either. What's with the hate? Sri Lanka has a pretty good navy. It's not as amazing as his 100 plus trireme navy that was just a couple of parts ago, but certainly it's better now. Their land forces are quite okay too, relatively speaking. If they really would try, they could take and hold the Mughals, but something is keeping them at bay. Maybe they fear Afghanistan too much. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to take your hats off, bow down your heads, and have a minute of silence for the United States of America. We're not here to only witness the passing of a great nation and a truly iconic leader. We are not here to only witness the end of a truly massive source of memes and OC. We are here to witness the death of a dream. The people of America had a dream of a united nation, where people would be their own Führers, instead of bowing under the fascist iron boots of autocracy, or under the tyranny of stifling and forced fake equality of order. That dream was called freedom, but alas, it was more of a free doom. Never again will there be a possibility for a man to enjoy the fruits of his labor, or do whatever he pleases. Lady Liberty will never show her light now to the dark Atlantic Ocean. For the tired, poor huddled masses yearning to breathe free, there is now only a concentration camp or a gulag were to march. Press F once for America, and twice for the death of a better world. The dream is dead, and the last Americans flee to the land of eternal carnival. Maybe the copious amounts of booze and almost naked people will help them forget that there was once a better way to live. Aloha putos. Hawaii flips the bird at Waipahu. Mexico has produced a new navy with some arcane magic, and looks actually stronger now on the sea. Hawaii better send in some reinforcements if they're truly so committed to keeping their foothold in North America. The Oceania Southeast Asia mayhem picks up steam, with Vietnam deciding that Champa must be showed who the top dragons are. Vietnam has actually no less than 3 aircraft carriers in this slide, but they're empty, so, you know. On the sea, the two combatants look more or less equal, but on land, Victor Charlie has a crushing superiority. The only problem for the Trunks is that neither their unique unit nor their massive horde of cannons can capture cities. They need to get privateers in range, but the Champan seawall looks pretty daunting. We shall see. Among the other nations to gun for Champa is Hawaii. They might actually have a decent shot at sniping or capturing Champan cities. We just don't know how much of the Aloha Navy there is left after the carnegation at California. Yeah, looks like Hawaii is how by here, am I right? They leave the butchered remains of probably millions of civilians behind and head toward Champa lands. Though Mexico has won a city here, it is a textbook example of a truly disastrous Pyrrhic victory. Hawaii has sunken so many Gatling guns under the waves that mermaids and fishes are dying from lead poisoning. The Mexican core that used to be literally full of Gatlings is now empty, and Texas is a non-stop rampage at the moment with Great War infantry. Ay caramba. The Brazilian ground assault grinds to a halt against a ferocious Argentinian defense, but the Brazilwood bombers of Pedro are doing one hell of a job. Jujuy is in the yellow. No doubt a concentrated assault by Great War infantry can break it. I think those planes are the death sentence for Argentina. If Brazil can capture all of their clay, they will rule supreme on South America, no doubt. Kyoto is once again in the kangaroo's pouch. Not only that, but as revenge, the Aussies are carpet-bombing Seoul, which is now in the red. Korea has no planes, which must mean that, like their unfortunate brother Finland, they don't have any oil. There are 17 Australian planes here, which could otherwise really mean the end for Korea, but aeroplanes are of little use against invisible submarines. I don't believe Parks can yet field an effective amphibious assault against Korea. Diggers maybe have a history of landings, but let's remember how they lost at Gallipoli. Just like in real life, in the BR, Israel and the USA go hand in hand. Hebron is securely Armenian, and Gaza is surrounded by Arabians who don't look very threatened by the walls of Jericho. I am rather sure Israel will be reduced to a one-city civ pretty soon. Tangier falls to the Moroccan assault. All the players of African Star are advised to start from Cairo, cause Tangier is an active war zone. Wait, Cairo is too? Don't play that game, guys! Carthage is preparing an army to defend Saguntium, and it's massing around Carthago Nova. It has a lot of people with pikes, which is suboptimal, but we have witnessed Carthage pull off insane stunts with shitty forces before. That was before #CossackGate though. Victoria falls, breaking the back of the Canadian Air Force. On the other hand, the Inuit army around Sarnia is just gone. The guns of Hudson Bay have extracted a heavy toll from the invaders. The main Western White Walker force is currently sieging Oyupe, a not so important city. If Canada can hold the line at the Charlottetown-Regina axis, there may be hope yet, but it looks like the Maple Leaf is folding under the bayonet charges of Inuit infantry. White Walkers are now pushing machine guns to the front, which means that counterattacks are out of the question. Where are those artillery brigades from the US front? The Kimberley Carrier battle group plows onward through the waves of Oceania, pounding away at Indonesia's defences. Samarindia is in the red, ready to go over to Jandamara, and Mataram is sustaining hits also. It looks like Jandamara is planning to surround Jakarta, and only then go choke that clove and pepper flavored chicken. Swedish planes bring Corinth into the red, but it looks like no Swedish unit can actually hope to capture it. Yet. Also, Sweden has ample resources of uranium visible, with one already mined up next to Berlin and the other one next to Warsaw. It is starting to look like Kekkonen should turn the sauna off and put the fishing rod away, because it's time to help the Spartans and claim that uranium. Also, Finland has no planes but does have machine guns, which means they are lacking in oil. I have the understanding that a certain Scandinavian nation is pretty famous for its abundance of oil, and those reserves are most likely now occupied by the Swedes. Korea pieces out with Australia. Looks like the constant bombing of Seoul was irritating Korean scientists, who were clearly busy splitting the atom. There is a uranium mine in the picture, and no doubt Korea will be one of the first nations of the world to get their hands on some nukes. Will y'all just gaze upon the mighty nation of Texas? For ages now, people have been talking shit about them, saying that those dumb Texian sons of guns are rednecks and will be crushed by Mexicans or bucks. As if! Not only have they won every goddamn war they were ever part of, they did so with ease. It's only a question of which nation they will rodeo to next. Mexico or Canada? Maybe the Blackfoot? It's hard to see anyone really giving them much of a problem now, at least until the Inuit get down south. Rejoice, fans of Chile! Good old Bernardo has done it once again and backdoored a waffle-shaped area of Vitkos. With 3 musketmen in melee range, it's going to flip again, but still, it's a moral victory. Oh, okay. There seems to be a global conspiracy to hunt down the last remaining troops of dead nations. This is a pretty sinister thing, but it might make a good movie. Last Stand of the Last Legion does sound quite good. Also, it clearly shows that M has been spending time with a secret lover. That intel about Jan Damara going against Indonesia is so old that it had to be carefully dug up by a crack team of elite archaeologists. Khan Eternal Iron of Mongolia got tired of the staring contest and transformed himself into a citadel. China now consists of 6 tiles, one of which is cut off from the rest of it. No worries though, it's all going to Mao's plan, I guess. Well, intense citadel spam in North Africa has also led to the Ayyubid city of Zabo only consisting of 3 tiles. Looks like the Ethiopian army of Harare and the Burr commando contingent of Klerksdorp are engaged in a pissing contest of citadel bombing, with the Ayyubids taking collateral damage. That is, incidentally, the only kind of damage they are taking, with a successful defense against Carthage. Round of applause to Saladin, everyone. And here, as usual, the last slide is the religion map. The destruction of Israel has done nothing to stop the advance of Judaism, and the same can be said for Tibet and Arkadu, or Shintoism, and Japan. Catholicism is thriving, and is the only religion in the world which is actively converting new pagans to the fold. It was a wild ride and one hell of a job. Thanks to TPangolin for letting me narrate, and thanks to all the readers of this magnificent series. Comments about narrating are welcome in the thread on r/Civ Battle Royale. It was a pleasure.